Let me ask you this. How many action items from last week's meeting were missed or were never completed to begin with? If you're like 73% of companies, then this is usually what happens. You have a meeting, you don't know what you actually discussed further down the road, and most action steps that you went over and tasks that you needed to complete from the meeting never were done. Well, that can change with just this small automation and AI agent. Believe it or not, these missed action steps and missed tasks that never get completed are costing companies $2.3 million a year from low production and production in wasted time. Just last year, construction companies lost on average $400,000 because delayed projects from actions that were never taken from meetings existed and were never completed. Hey, I'm Jackson Rose from JR Automations, and this is my AI meeting and task agent that transcribes meetings, brings in all the action steps that were discussed over that meeting, creates tasks in Slack and also Google Calendar to make sure that everything is completed and tasks are staying up to date. Also, it takes chronological order weekly to look at overdue tasks that were not completed and send out an urgent Slack notification that, hey, we need to meet on this because this needs to be completed by this date. I'm gonna go in depth on how to actually set up this AI agent so that it can perform extremely well and show you what it's capable of for your particular business, team, or department. Hey everybody, this is super exciting stuff, but I wanna take a minute to think about how your team, your department, or your business can save 10, 20, 30, even 40 hours every week from eliminating manual tasks. How do we do that? You can eliminate them from AI systems and AI automation that reduces each team member's manual tasks and saves them tons of time and money and energy for the business, for the team, and for the individual, and allows the individual within your business to do what they're actually hired to do. Some consulting firms charge $3,000 to almost $8,000 for this kind of insight, and I'm giving it away completely free. And when you book a time to actually meet and talk about implementing these systems, I'll give you a free quote as well. So if this sounds interesting, please go in the description or go to proverbaiconsulting.com to learn more. All right, let's get back to the video. All right, everybody, so here is the automation in all its glory. And as you can see, it has two separate triggers to it. One trigger being a Google Drive trigger that is notified and ran consistently, but basically it checks for whether something has been modified or not inside the Google Drive folder. The other trigger is a chronological every Monday at 9 a.m. trigger. And this is basically just to run when you want to check if there's any sort of overdue plans or overdue action items in this Google Sheet that tracks everything to see if anything is missed and if there are any tasks that are overdue for that reason. So I'm going to briefly get into the beginning of this where we're going to go each piece by piece and show you exactly how it works on the back end. All right, so let's start here. As you can see, a Google Drive trigger is going off, and I'm gonna go into this to show you exactly what's going on, but every minute it's polling times and it's checking to changes involving a specific folder. So as you can see, my weekly project sync meetings, which is a folder that will house every transcript from Google Gemini that happens in a Google Meet. So if we are working for a team, and in this particular situation, I am working for a business called JR Automations Construction, and the project is a construction project where we have three or four different employees that are all meeting weekly about this project, and they're all getting notified via Slack. They're all part of this Google Sheets master plan that shows different tasks, and then also they're all part of this weekly meeting, and it gets transcribed and sent to this folder. So this folder houses all of the meetings transcribed inside of it, and it will be polling all the time, but it will be listening for when something happens to this folder. And for this instance, it's watching for file created. All right, so moving on, after that trigger is actually triggered, it's going to then push this document that is a specific ID that is of the new created file. And the new created file is a text file that's a transcription, and it shows exactly what's going on in the file and pulling all the information from it. However, as you know, in a download file or a Google Drive file node, it actually doesn't get returned as any content, it gets returned as a binary file. So the next node that we have is an extract from file node, which this is utilizing JSON files, but it's basically extracting all the text content from that downloaded file from Google Drive and putting it in the output so that we can know exactly what the content is, and the model, after it gets set with the input, so the set node, it then triggers this next node, which is the extract action items. And I'm gonna go directly into this to show you what I mean. So with the extract action items, we're using an OpenAI GPT 4.1 mini to do the processing of the information, but I'm gonna briefly read the prompt for the user, which is: you're an expert project manager assistant. Your job is to analyze meeting transcripts and extract all action items. For each action item provided is task description assigned to, so the person responsible, due date, urgency, category, and then it's going to spit out a object which is a JSON array of action items. The user prompt is just analyze this meeting transcript and extract all action items, and then it's getting that and referencing the model input, and then return the action items as a JSON array. All right, so now that we've gotten over this top piece, I'm going to go over exactly what happens after this OpenAI node fires and pushes more data through the workflow. And we're going to start with this code in JavaScript. And essentially, I mean, you don't have to reference the code because it's going to be in the description, but essentially what it's doing is it's splitting all of the different action steps into their own items. So for one item, you'll have name associated, due date, urgency level, task description, and all that information in one item. In this situation, I believe the transcript gets parsed into 7 items or 7 action items. So that will be 7 action items getting pushed through this workflow. Once again, we have a set node, and essentially what this is doing in this node is just creating some extra fields, but also bringing in every field from the item that gets pushed through the code node. And what this is doing is basically categorizing the meeting title, meeting date, ID, status pending, right? Because it hasn't been pushed through as an actual status yet or hasn't been completed. So there's that set node. Now this might be the most important crux of the whole workflow and how everything gets split out into rows. So in this switch node, which I think is one of the most powerful nodes in n8n to use, you'll see that everything gets split out into its own routing through rules. And the rules that I have set for this is taking the urgency field of each item, and it's saying, okay, if this urgency item is high, it's going to be pushed through this route. If it's medium, push through this route. And then if it's extra output, it's going to be pushed through the other one. And any sort of information coming through this is all super important to categorize what's going to happen with the Slack notifications and also how they get logged in Google Sheets. So the Slack notification piece is a big piece that gets projected into this channel that I have in Slack called Construction Project Team. And every urgent action item needs to be accounted for, especially with a business that relies heavily on making sure they're staying in line with the project and staying on strict due dates. So if it's something like contacting lawyers or staying compliant, these would all be urgent action steps, especially with a construction project. For instance, like getting your zoning permits sent in at a specific time. That would be just one example, but everything gets pushed into Slack so that everybody knows that this action step is extremely urgent and needs to be taken care of ASAP. So that's a piece of it. And then once we have these things completed right here, which would be these 2 nodes, we're going to push it to a merge branches node, and basically all the combinations get combined with both the Slack notifications and also all the items that were coming from the Google Sheets that all got logged. That gets sent in a generate email summary, which again, this whole code will be in the description. But essentially what it does is it puts it into an HTML body that will be sent to an email to notify a decision maker or probably all the team, so they're all associated with what kind of action steps need to be pushed forward. It's a lot easier to look at an email that has everything itemized, categorized specifically, rather than just going back and referencing, you kind of have to break down the transcripts from Gemini. It's not perfect, and it definitely doesn't order things in action steps. So if you can see it in a well-constructed email, it makes everything a lot better and a lot easier for the team to understand exactly who's doing what and what needs to be accomplished ASAP, or what can be put off to the actual due date that you can see in the logs. All right, so that brings us to the second piece of this automation workflow, which is a chronological trigger that triggers an AI agent to look at overdue tasks, analyze them, and then send out a message in Slack to say that we've missed this overdue due point, and I'm going to create and look for meeting times where we can assess what's going on and find a solution to solve this overdue item. And I think this is super powerful because although it's a super simple AI agent, it does tasks that are necessary in order to make sure everybody's aligned. And when everybody's aligned, you can work as a team more successfully, you can work as a department more successfully, and ultimately you work as a business more succinct and more successful in communication. Because communication for everyone is a very big piece. And if you can make sure that you're keeping track of all the action items and tasks that are being done, especially with a big project, it can be difficult. If everybody's aligned and everybody knows what's going on, it just makes everybody's life a little bit more simpler. So getting into this, what it's going to do is it's going to trigger every Monday at 9 a.m. It's then going to look at the action items set with the Google Sheets that were up in this section. It's going to look at that again. It's going to filter overdue items. So it's going to look at everything, but it's only going to pick out the overdue items in the code node. As you can see that, again, you don't need to do that, but it will be in the description. And then once it has those overdue pieces, it'll send it to this AI agent that will say, we have blank overdue action items that need immediate attention. Overdue items breakdown, that would be the pieces coming from the filter node. And then task, send a Slack notification to action items channel that includes total number of overdue items, brief summary of most critical items, mention that you're scheduling a meeting to address them, check availability for everybody and the team members to make sure that we're all aligned, we can all make a meeting time, and then find a 30-minute slot in the next 3 business days from either 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then create a calendar event titled Overdue Action Items Review. All the team members are attendees. Describe, summarize the overdue items and the agenda to review and reassign tasks. Execute these steps in order and confirm when each is complete. And then in the system prompt, it just says you're a project manager or assistant responsible for handling overdue action items. Your job is to analyze the overdue items provided, send a Slack notification to alert the teams, check calendar availability for the team, book a meeting to discuss and resolve the overdue items. Tools available, Slack send messages, so the notifications, check Google Calendar for availability, create the event, and then actually trigger it and send that event out. So this is just a itemized sequence of what the AI agent needs to do. That's very important in the system prompt, that the agent knows execution, and in the user prompt, it's very important that they're getting the right information to make the decisions. So if you're ever writing an AI agent prompt for both user and system, these 2 pieces are very important to understand, because user is the identity of the AI agent and what kind of information it's getting. System prompt is what you actually want the agent to do and the tasks that you want to have them complete in sequence or use tools. In this case, we're using 3 tools. In most cases, it's just maybe 1 tool, or it's just a think model or a think agent, but you can use as many tools as you want with some sort of safeguard to it, because AI agents, depending on which model you use, can become overwhelmed. So you need to think about that when you're creating an AI agent. All right, so before I move any further into showing this actual workflow in action, I wanted to just show you exactly the meeting transcript. I'm not going to read it for you, but this is just what a standard meeting transcript from Google Gemini of a meeting would look like. Has heavy conversation. I guess it does highlight some main points, but it's not perfect, and it's never going to do exactly what you want it to. So you're going to get a bunch of jumbled conversation. Hopefully AI can pick that out and make good decisions on it. But in this case, we're keeping it simple, and we're going to use this as the example. All right, so I'm going to execute on this just to show you guys what's going on in the background and show you guys how it executes. So it's taking in that folder, it's finding that new updated file, and it's extracting all the information from it and then giving it to the model to assess. Now it's being parsed from the code node, and then also it's being sent out in Slack as Google Sheets also logs it. And then ultimately it's sent out to decision makers via email in the HTML format to show a more cleaner look, and just everything's a little bit more clean and nice looking. Here's that Google Sheets that handles all the action items and tasks. As you can see, it's fully filled out. We have it set for Mike Chin, John Davis, Lisa Martinez, and Sarah Johnson, all getting tasks, and all with different urgency levels. Also all with different due dates. In fact, Mike Chin's first assigned task has no specified due date, and then there's different statuses, but for this particular piece of it, it's just saying pending because none of them have actually been completed. They've all been created today, and the project is ready to be assessed based off of the action items from the meeting. So I'm currently in Slack as well, and I'm part of this construction project. The urgency pieces have actually been added to this. For instance, the first one's for Sarah Johnson. It's to review the updated structural plans for the architect. The second one is for Mike Chen. Contact the supplier about steel beams due to low inventory and 3-week lead time. And then the final one is for John Davis. Follow up with the city to get permits approved immediately for foundational work. So those have all been recorded in Slack and have all been marked as urgent items within the team. So before I actually do the second piece of this workflow, I want to show some very specific information about the due dates that are associated with different tasks. So as you can see, I changed Mike's due date from unassigned or unspecified to due date being the day before this meeting. Same thing with, I believe, Mike Chen has another one that's due before the meeting was actually done, and then John Davis had one due a day before the meeting as well. So in this next piece, you're going to see that because these are due dates have passed the actual meeting and when they were triggered by the actual workflow to run, you're going to see them marked as overdue, and that being an urgency build for the Slack notification that the AI agent's going to do, and then also booking meetings. So as I run this, you're going to see this bottom piece actually start to process, and then the AI agent's going to actually figure out what's going on and then book a meeting accordingly. So it's running, it went through that Google Sheets, and now it's thinking and sending out a Slack message. It's then checking availability on the calendar, and then it's creating an event. So that has completed. We're going to go see what that looks like in Slack and also see what it looks like on the calendar. So I'm currently in Google Calendar, and as you can see, I have a meeting for Friday, overdue action items review. So I'm just going to click on this to see what's going on, and it looks like there's a Google Meet that was scheduled. It's from 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. And in the description, it says review and address the following overdue items. Mike Chin, his item that was due this date, high urgency. John Davis, follow up with city for permits to approve foundation work. And then again, Mike Chin, order safety equipment for new crew members. And the agenda is basically review and reassign tasks as necessary. Now I'm going to go into Slack and see what Slack has to say. So yeah, we're in Slack, and as you can see, that same message came out and it was sent, and it says there are 3 overdue action items requiring immediate attention. And then it just reiterates that from the Google Meet as well. It says, I'm scheduling a meeting soon to discuss and resolve these items. Please be prepared to address these tasks. And then it shows it from the n8n workflow. So that concludes my AI agent that checks meetings and tasks and transcribes different action items for teams, departments, and businesses. Now, although this workflow hasn't been as complex as the previous ones that I've done for my channel, this is an extremely powerful workflow, mainly because every single business in the world has to have meetings. If you don't have communication between your team members and employees, then you probably don't run a very successful business. And this is just one of the examples in which it uses for a construction company, but it can be used in any sort of business that has planning, strategic planning for businesses, any sort of projects that need to be done or completed that are on a strict timeline and need to be referenced with tasks and action items for each individual and each person that's part of that project. So I want to thank you for watching, making it to this point. I hope you can use this sort of workflow in your business, your team, or department, and have it be super effective for you in completing tasks and making sure that all action steps are reached. Thank you, and I will see you next week with another real-world automation. I appreciate everything. Like and subscribe this video so I can make more great content that actually helps businesses in real-world applications. Have a great rest of your day.